Welcome everyone to the January 13th, 2025 meeting of the Carver School Committee. If everyone could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
She said hello to Billy.
Hello, Bill. I didn't say hello to anybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So we're going to start with comments from the EAPC.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can hear you.
Oh.
Welcome.
All right, Google Meets, you're mixing it up on me. At first, I didn't know what was going on when I clicked, but I'll make it work. I navigated it.
It's a whole new world, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I said, I'm a Zoom guy, so you really messed me up here. But I made it work. I even learned how to blur my background in a short amount of time. So I just want to say Happy New Year, everyone. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Like you are doing later tonight, we've also been preparing for upcoming negotiations. I just left the Carver Elementary School with the teacher team about a little while ago. Look forward to seeing some of you on Thursday at our initial meeting as we talk about setting up the negotiation process. And I'm very interested in the budget presentation tonight. That's it, everyone.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to comments from Captain's Council.
Yeah, so we're pleased to have the boys captains here this evening, William Ruffini, Ben Durant, and Nate Helms. Come on up, guys.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm going first with girls basketball. All right, so we're just talking about the sports and how they're doing this year. So starting off with girls basketball. Girls basketball has an overall record of 2-3 as of January 9th. Josie Helms was nominated for the Patriot Ledger Player of the Week after the opening week of games. They play Randolph High School tomorrow on the 14th at 6 p.m. Come out and support. It's at home.
Winter Cheer works hard during the winter, preparing for competitions and continuing to build on the success they had during the fall. We thank them for planning on supporting both boys and girls basketball at a couple of home games this season.
Esports. The spring session of esports will be starting back up on January 21st. Games played will be Super Smash Bros., Overwatch, chess, and more. Winter track. Last week's Carver Athletics Athletes of the Week were Emma Wall and Jake Holden. Both got medals in their events. Many of our track and field athletes are setting PRs. PRs means personal records. And qualifying for states early in the season. They will compete again tonight at the Reggie Lewis Center.
For Carver Wrestling, at the 2024 Marshfield Holiday Tournament, Carver placed 12th out of 37 schools. Colson Tully placed first. Aaron and Jack Reed placed 5th together. Mikey Brennan placed 8th. And Josh Clark placed 12th in their weight classes. The next meet is January 15th at Randolph at 5 p.m.
Next up, we have boys hockey. This is a co-op team with Middleborough, and our players include Levon Mulready, assistant captain Keegan Wentworth, Logan Moore, Ryan Leventree, Kenneth McDonald, Nat Mercer, and Logan Pierce. Their next game will be at Gallo Ice Arena in Bourne on January 15th at 6 p.m. Following boys hockey is girls hockey. This is also a co-op team with Sandwich being the host school. Our players include Brooklyn Benting, Lily Mulready, and Sierra Mulready. Their next game will be January 15th at Martha's Vineyard Ice Arena versus Martha's Vineyard at 4:30 p.m.
Right now for our boys basketball team, we have 2 upcoming games next week, both at home. We have Norwell on Monday, and on Tuesday we have Westport. If you guys would come support. We did have a slow start to the season at 1-4, but we're looking to bounce back.
And that's all.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much for being
Congratulations.
here.
Congratulations on your first win the other night.
Okay, so that brings us to comments from the middle school student ambassadors.
Yeah, so we're pleased to welcome Elise Hallinan, Haley Sprunk, Alec Gill, Taylor Whipple, and Cindy Matrano, who are going to present on behalf of our middle school student ambassadors.
Absolutely.
Hello, my name is Cindy Matrano and I am in 8th grade.
Alec Gill, 6th grade.
Haley Sprunk, 8th.
I'm Elise Hallinan and I'm in 7th grade.
Hi, I'm Taylor Whipple and I'm in 8th grade.
We're back. Hope everyone had a great vacation. We will be filling you in on what we did during term 2. Starting off strong with the 8th grade New York City field trip. The 8th grade attended the annual trip to New York City on December 12th. It was a very long day, but the best day. We met at the school at 4 a.m. and arrived in Times Square by 10:30. We took nice coach buses and brought lots of snacks to have for the ride. We ate lunch at Bubba Gump Shrimp, visited the Wax Museum, and saw the Rockettes at the Radio City Music Hall. The show was amazing and we had great seats, which made it even better. As an 8th grader, I had an amazing experience. Shopping in Times Square, visiting the M&M store, Bryant Park, and taking pictures of all the sights was so much fun. Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. The Wax Museum was great too. The wax figures were very lifelike. You can see Nathan Hamill getting interviewed by Jimmy Fallon.
The student ambassadors worked together to make cards for all their teachers before the holiday break. Student ambassadors met during 2 wind blocks this month to make holiday cards for staff members and spread holiday cheer. It was a fun activity when we got to be creative and listen to holiday music.
Hallway decorating. We have a fun holiday tradition of decorating the hallways throughout the school. This helps bring the festive spirit to CMHS. This photo is of the gingerbread house that chef and food services worked on together. Lights, lights, and more lights. The middle school and high school hallways were decorated with a bunch of lights from the students and also staff. Crusader Day. Miss Cabral showed her school spirit and dressed up as an elf on the shelf. It was great seeing everyone festive on Crusader Day. Thank you, Mr. Cheska and the student council for planning such a great Crusader Day and for including the middle school students. Pictures with Santa. Everyone got to take pictures with Santa. Here you can see some of the group photos that some students took.
The 7th grade students attended the Providence Performing Arts Center to see a live performance of The Christmas Carol. When the students returned, they wrote an essay about their thoughts on the actors, props, and overall performance.
The holiday concert. The 6th, 7th, and 8th grade celebrated the holiday season with a winter concert in December. Each grade performed a few songs separately and 2 combined songs. The CMHS drama production, The Addams Family. Another big event which took place in December was the Addams Family production. We performed 3 times for family, friends, and in early December, and in mid-December we performed for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Next time we'll be here, we will be talking about carousel roller skating, Project 351 update, 7th grade career fair, chocolate social, and book club.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, nice job.
Lots of fun stuff happening in the middle school. Okay, so that brings us to comments from the general public. I'm assuming there's a chat on Google Meets where someone can type their name in.
They could, if anybody wanted to.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's anyone on it.
I think the only person on from outside is Mr. Pinto.
Okay. Alrighty then. Well, if there's anyone that's here in person that would like to speak, you're more than welcome to come up to the table and speak into the microphone. This is the only time that there is public comment open. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Grant. I am sure, or I'm not sure, maybe I'm not sure if everybody's aware that we had the passing of Mr. Gomes, Rocky Ricardo Gomes. Here tonight after, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Neef and Mrs. Corral for, all the sentiments they sent out to the family, and we're already planning a memorial service to be held at the school. There's a groundswell of folks that want to memorialize and remember Rocky forever. And I'm here tonight asking that we think about naming the gymnasium or the track and the field after Mr. Gomes. So, simply. So thank you. I ask for your consideration in that. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no movement to the microphone, we will move on to the approval of minutes from the December 9, 2024 open session meeting of the Carver School Committee.
I move that we approve the December 9th, 2024 open session minutes.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Gina, for putting the minutes together for us. And that brings us to communications.
So we do have one communication this evening. On Friday, actually, we were notified that DESE has completed what's called the IEP Early Adopter Video. So I think the committee knows last year we participated as one of the new IEP Early Adopter groups because they established a new IEP that actually went into effect this year. The Carver Public Schools was an early adopter. That early adopter process actually went over 2 years, where we had staff and teachers and administrators working on the development and design of the new IEP. And as part of that process, they made a decision to come out to Carver and use us as a video. So to highlight the work of our group, and then they've created that video, which is going to be available on the DESE website, so it's going to be publicly out there. I just thought it was great kudos to our team that we were selected for DESE to come down and highlight the work we had done, specifically around UDL, which was related to the new IEP adopter group. So I just wanted to show the community the video.
Excellent.
It's about 4 minutes long. And we're trying out Meets tonight, so we'll see how we do on showing the video on Meets. All right. So far, not well. Yeah, I think I gotta pull the files tab. Yeah. So, we're new on using Meets, and then I'll stop the share, and I'll try to share that. There, yeah. Just playing. There we go. Share. See?
Great.
My name is Melissa Leary. I'm the Director of Special Education from Carver Public Schools. We have about 1,500 students in our district. There's about 750 in each, the elementary school and the middle high school. At the beginning of the IEP Improvement Project, we were tasked with gathering all this data.
So we looked at quantitative and qualitative data, and we thought that too many students are being recommended for testing and to be put on IEP services. So we tried to reevaluate that process.
We thought that using Universal Design for Learning would help to provide more access for all students so that then we would have less students referred for IEPs.
Universal Design for Learning is similar to the idea of universal design in that if you think about our environment, we have sidewalks that have open curbs, so all people of all abilities can get onto a sidewalk. It reduces the barriers in the environment, and so UDL is a way to reduce all barriers in the school environment.
Well, being a regular ed teacher in a typical classroom, I still have a wide variety of needs in front of me. All kinds of personalities, all kinds of interests, and I have learned that there's a lot of things that get in the way of kids learning. And those barriers can be taken down by offering some simple choices. Would you like to stand or sit? Would you like a whiteboard or a plain piece of paper? Would you like to create a video explaining what you've learned, or would you like to make a poster? Universal Design for Learning allows me to reflect on my practice, to identify barriers, and to offer choice to students.
With this project, we were able to really shift our perspective in thinking as far as looking at students not for having learning difficulties, but really looking at their strengths and trying to enhance their abilities to get out their education and to get out their knowledge or explain it.
So if we can meet the children's needs in the classroom, then do they really need, specific supports or IEP per se? Is it really a weakness or a disability, or is it that they don't understand the model in which they're being taught?
You're really taking a look at your class and your lesson and your content, and you're thinking ahead of time, what can I do to allow more kids access to that? And it's just been a great process that I took very slowly, one little step at a time, offering some choice, offering voice, like, hey, Miss Smith, can we do this instead? Yes.
We did a lot of professional development for our staff at the middle high school. We also had book clubs where our IEP Improvement Project Early Adopter team read different books on Universal Design for Learning. And then we also had instructional rounds where staff from CAST, as well as us, kind of went around and did different observations of the classrooms and really looked to see where we could find Universal Design for Learning and highlight that and really emphasize that with our staff to reinforce Universal Design for Learning for all.
The students' output is so much more willing, they're more engaged. I used to think that I had to entertain them to create engagement, and that's not true. I needed to make the material relevant to them. It's been quite an endeavor. I highly recommend it.
So this is just the beginning of utilizing Universal Design for Learning. And I think taking it in baby steps was important because it can seem overwhelming, but those small baby steps can add up to a lot. And we've really seen the progress that has happened here in Carver.
Yeah, so congratulations to our group. I just wanted to show that off, that we're being spotlighted, and that video is going to be displayed in a range of areas highlighting the work that we've been doing within the district. So I wanted to share that with the committee and the community.
Excellent. Thank you very much for bringing that to us. That's wonderful to see. Okay, so that brings us to reports from the superintendent and personnel updates.
Okay, so since our last meeting, we've had a couple changes in personnel. New hires, James Tormey as an ESP bus monitor, and Edward Keller as an assistant mechanic. We've also had a few resignations. Alexis Falco as an ESP in special education at the elementary school. Jody Richards-Ald as an ESP special education at the elementary school. Darcy Roberts, food service at the middle high school. And Tiffany Paparo as food service at the middle high school.
Thank you. That brings us to elementary diversity awareness.
Yeah, so we're excited this evening to have our elementary counselors, Jordan Hardiman and Nicole Bartlett, here with us. They're going to present a little bit about some activities we've been doing in collaboration with the administration to promote diversity and inclusion at the elementary school. So please welcome to Jordan and Nicole.
Great, welcome. Thank you for being here.
And just give me a second to get your presentation up.
So I'm Nicole Bartlett. I'm the school adjustment counselor for 3, 4, and 5.
And I'm Jordan Hardiman, school adjustment counselor pre-K through 2.
But we're excited to share with you guys. We did it a few years ago, kind of pre-COVID and all stuff like that, and bringing it back to our school. And it's just something like we've all as a team really enjoyed. Feel like the kids get a lot out of it, and we also get just as much out of it, I feel like. So what we've been doing is a monthly reading within the classrooms, where we go in as a reading team, really just to kind of promote like compassion and empathy and understanding, and to really, foster an inclusive environment. Discussion around just taking a different perspective and showing empathy for others, just in a different way that maybe students might not see on their own, and just kind of encourage that conversation. I feel like that's just as big as the book, is really really just the conversation after, just kind of sparking different interests in the kids and, different ways that maybe they didn't think about things. And, just because somebody might have a disability doesn't mean they're not able to do certain things that, every other student could do and what abilities they do have. And just to really highlight that, and just to celebrate really that we're all unique and we're all special and we all have, good things we're really good at and things we can work on, and, really just highlighting within their classroom community, just the differences within each of them. And also just to connect to our school theme, Be the Change, by empowering students, that to make a positive impact not only in their community but in their classroom and just around our school. And it's just been, like I said, the conversations after the different stories have been really touching.
So we have our readers, and our readers are Mrs. Maestas, Dr. Pinella, Dr. Stahl, Mrs. Bartlett, myself, and Mrs. Hines, our school psychologist. And we kind of schedule out 2 weeks, and we get to go into every classroom. So each reader goes into a specific classroom in each grade, and that's been really awesome too, because primarily we work in we have a specific caseload, but it's really nice, like I get to go into a 3rd grade class and 4th and 5th, and also connect with kids that aren't on our caseload too, so we get to work with all students, which is amazing. And like Mrs. Bartlett said, the conversations that the students have been having along with the staff members and their own teachers get involved in the conversation as well. It's been amazing, and we've really enjoyed it.
So this is just a picture of some of the books that we were able to purchase this year. We have some from years before, but Carver Cares also helped support the purchase of all these new books, which was amazing. So we were really appreciative of that. But different topics include like diversity, emotions, communication, anxiety, stuttering, autism, food allergies, vision and hearing impairments. That's just some of them. We have a lot more too. But just for instance, like the food allergy one, it's interesting to see the kids when you talk about what's your favorite food. Can you imagine if you never can have that again? And they kind of like, wait, what? Like, so thinking of it in a different way is, really interesting and fun.
So the first book that we went in and read was called Finding Your Spot in the World. It was a story about diversity, and we did that in November. And the book highlighted how we are all different and can act different and like different things, but we can all show empathy to one another even though we're so different. And we, like I said, we enjoyed it so much. And the teachers, we've gotten great feedback from our teachers as well, so everyone's really excited for our next book that we're going to be reading soon.
So our next topic starts, I believe it's the week of January 21st. This story is called The Invisible Boy. It's a really impactful story if you haven't seen it before, but it kind of shows a book about this child who really wasn't colored in at all because he felt like so alone and just not included in things, and just somebody that felt truly invisible to everyone. And as the story progresses, you can see like a little bit more color added to him as different people include him and have him join in, and one boy like really recognizes him for who he is. But it really just encouraged like other people have feelings, and can you imagine what it would feel like if you were the one left out, and how that must feel every day. And even just conversation of we all bring different things, coming with us to school each day. You don't know what somebody's morning looks like. So really just also general ideas versus just specifically about disabilities. And it just really gets them thinking about, different people's situations.
And these are some more books that we have. So The Alphabet War, Ian's Walk, Why Can't I Have a Cupcake, To Be Me, and Everyone Matters. And so these are going to be added to our readings as well. And what's also great too is that the students, we don't want them to feel uncomfortable, but we want them to feel comfortable talking about these things. And in the last book that we read to the students, I asked them, can everyone just close your eyes? Because I didn't want anyone to feel singled out. And the students closed their eyes, and I said, have you ever felt so different that you didn't feel accepted? And every single student raised their hand, but they didn't know because they weren't looking. And it was so eye-opening for me to see that. And so then I just, I said, okay, everyone, you can put your hands down and open your eyes. And I said, well, I just want you all to know that you're not alone, and a lot of you feel the exact same way. And if you ever felt alone in that, you're not alone. And it was just, I think everyone just felt very comfortable. So it's a safe environment that we're also creating with these books.
Yeah. And this just kind of connects to our SSS committee that we have at our school, something that we actually just presented to the teachers tonight at faculty meeting that we're going to start tomorrow for nominations, but we're calling it the Champion of Change. That's a bulletin board we have up for all the grade levels to see by the cafeteria, but we're asking staff to nominate students to really highlight different impacts they've had, whether it be in their classroom or maybe they heard something about really awesome that they did in the community, but they can nominate those students, and at our next school assembly, we're going to highlight those students, but then pick one champion of change and really highlight them on our bulletin board for like the school to see like what they did, and you know, really encourage other people like you could be the next one. So it's just something that we're trying to, you know, highlight different amazing things that are happening.
So thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? It's
very
amazing.
impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing that with us.
Thank you, Nicole and Jordan, for all the work you're doing. Appreciate it.
That's great.
A lot of chairs up there.
It's a trip hazard now.
I'm sure. Okay, so that brings us to revised MCAS guidelines.
Yep. Just give me a second to get it up on the screen.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as the community knows and the committee knows, the ballot question in November removed the 10th grade MCAS requirement as a graduation requirement. So students no longer are required to pass the 10th grade MCAS exams and the 9th grade science exam to graduate. We do have a lot of 10th graders in the audience this evening, so they may be interested in this presentation. This might be the most interesting part of the evening for them. Well, maybe not. It may not be the most interesting part of the evening. What did the fall ballot question really do? It removed passing the 10th grade MCAS and English MCAS exams as a requirement to earn what's called competency determination towards earning a high school diploma. And not to give the whole presentation away, but the reality is students still need to earn a competency determination. And through this presentation, I'm going to define what a competency determination is and how students are going to earn it. And it's not going to be a huge hurdle, but it could be a hurdle for a student or two. So we'll talk about that. It also removed passing one high school science exam, physics, biology, chemistry, or technology and engineering as a requirement to earn a competency determination towards a high school diploma. Obviously, I think most people know, in Carver we gave the intro to physics exam. If students did not pass the intro to physics exam, then they had to take the biology exam in their sophomore year. What it did not do, it did not end the requirement for students to take the MCAS exam in grades 3 through 8 or in grade 10, or as a high school science class. So this spring, we'll be giving all the MCAS exams that we've given in the past, just like any other year. You know, the only change in expectation is students don't need to receive a passing score to graduate. But the exam itself is still a requirement. It meets our federal requirements in terms of we're supposed to, under federal guidance, we're supposed to measure students' competency in English and math in grades 3 through 8 and once in high school. And that's a requirement for federal funding. So we still have to give some sort of exam. You know, I don't see anything in the future where the state would remove the MCAS exam and go to a different exam, but that's possible. It doesn't have to be the MCAS exam, but it has to be some exam that measures students' competency in terms of those core subjects in English and math. So right now the state is not looking to change the MCAS exam, and I do think that's a point of confusion. I think there are some people who believe that the exam is no longer required. So we just want to be really clear to the community, to students, that just like in the past, everyone's going to be asked to take the exams as they have. Second part of that, there is no MCAS opt-out. So we've always talked about this. The exam is still a requirement. The exam will be used to measure students' progress against attaining state standards. It does provide a tool and valuable information for parents, teachers, and schools. It's about students' growth and achievement. And it does not take away MCAS exams that you'll get a not meeting expectations if you don't take the exam. So Sometimes parents call and say, how do I opt out of the MCAS exam? And our answer is, the answer is always the same. There is no MCAS opt-out. It is a requirement of the state. You are required to take it. Now, that being said, we don't put the computer, I was going to say the pencil, but it's not a pencil anymore. We don't take the computer and put it in your hand and say, you have to do this thing. But parents should know, students should know, community members should know that if you don't take the exam, if your parents write a letter saying, I don't want my student to participate in the MCAS exam, that the district and the school does receive a score of not meeting expectations for that exam. So that does go against the overall scores for the district. And obviously that's all publicly available data. The reality is that is data that people look at in terms of making decisions in terms of where they're going to purchase their home, where they'd like to live. I think there are some people who view it as a measurement of the success of the school, whether that's right or wrong. And we could have a long debate about what does the MCAS exam mean and what is it, how much does it really measure the quality of your education. But I think there's a reality piece that those are things that people still do. So I do think there is a real impact if we were to have a large opt-out. If all of a sudden people were like, hey, this isn't a graduation requirement anymore, my student's not going to take the exam. And the other thing parents and community members should think about and students should think about is the exam's going to happen. So it's going to be occurring during the school day. If for some reason you decide to opt out, we're still expecting you to come to school. It still counts as an absence if you're not there. If you're not participating, you're generally put into a different environment. So you're not sitting in the room where the students are taking the exam. So certainly the district's position would be, and we want to send a clear message to the community that the MCAS exam is still happening, and our expectation is students are still going to take it, and our expectation is students should give their best effort at all times. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a fight for some of our 10th graders, and I'm looking at them because they're out in the audience, in terms of, when it comes to MCAS day to say, do I really want to give this my best shot? Am I really going to put my full effort into this because I don't need it. I don't need to pass it for graduate. And, certainly I'm not going to lie to them and tell them that they need to do it to graduate. But, our expectation would be that we'd always give give your best effort because you always want to perform well. Anytime you're given the opportunity to perform in whatever it is, whether it's educationally, whether it's in a sport, whether it's in dance, whether it's singing, whether you're going to come and speak at the school committee meeting, whether you're going to represent yourself, then anytime you do that thing, you're representing yourself, you're representing your school, you're representing your community. I'm up on my soapbox. But you should want to show well. You should want to represent yourself well. That should always be an internal personal expectation. And we're hoping that's going to carry our students through, especially our 10th graders, as they take the MCAS exam this year. None of that was on that slide, but that's okay. There's no opt-out. This is important information. What is a competency determination? I am going to read this. Definition from the state, from the Department of Education of what is competency determination. And it's kind of a little wordy and a little shaky, but I'll try to explain it afterwards. Competency determination shall be based on the academic standards and curriculum frameworks for 10th grade students in the areas of math, science and technology, and English, and shall represent a determination that a particular student has demonstrated mastery of the common core of skills, competencies, and knowledge in these areas. Satisfaction of the requirement of a competency determination shall be a condition for high school graduation. And so that is the law. The law in Massachusetts is we have to say students earn a competency determination. We have to say that they've demonstrated mastery at the 10th grade level in English, math, and a science course. So how did we used to say that? The MCAS exam. So we measured competency determination by you passing the MCAS exam. So the MCAS exam is no longer the way in which we measure competency determination. But under state law, we're still required to establish a competency determination for students. And so this is the law. The new law amended by the ballot question says students must demonstrate a mastery of common core of skills, competencies, and knowledge. That seems very similar to what I just said. By satisfactorily completing coursework that has been certified by the student's district as showing a mastery of skills, competencies, etc., etc. So now you're going to earn your competency determination by passing your classes in school. And the school district has to determine what those classes are that show that you've reached a level of mastery of 10th grade content. Right? So what does that look like? And actually, this is what we did during COVID. So during COVID, for 2 years, we didn't give the MCAS exam. So there were 2 graduating classes. I don't remember the ones exactly. I should remember 2022, 21 took the exam in 10th grade. So 2022 and 2023, they actually didn't take the MCAS exam. So we determined competency determination by actually, we had a report to the state that students passed Algebra 1, Geometry, 2 years of high school English, and a tested science subject. Physics, biology, chemistry, or science, engineering, and technology. And we actually had, the state actually sent us for each graduating student a online form that we had to go in and complete and list the coursework that they completed to reach that competency determination. So the process is going to be the same now, except instead of the state tracking it, the district has to track it. So for each of our graduating students, for each of our 10th grade students, they are required to earn this thing called competency determination. They have to pass Algebra 1, they have to pass Geometry, they have to pass 2 years of English, they have to pass 4 years of English to graduate from high school, so they're going to meet that one. And they have to pass a high school science subject, which it would be really hard for them not to pass one of physics, biology, or chemistry and graduate from high school and meet our other graduation requirements. Where there might be a trip up, and sorry, I've kind of left the presentation a little bit. Where there might be a trip up is 99.9% of our students pass Algebra 1 in geometry. But every now and then there's someone who maybe doesn't pass Algebra 1 in geometry. And that is the standard for the 10th grade MCAS exam. The math MCAS exam says you demonstrate competency in Algebra 1 and geometry. So they're going to have to be now required to pass those subjects in high school. So if you fail geometry in 10th grade or in 9th grade, you have to retake it and you have to pass it. Or Algebra 1. We have to be able to document, and we're going to have to maintain a checklist for each of our seniors that they've met those competencies. So this is just that same thing. Do high school students still need to earn a competency determination? It's called a CD. The answer is yes. There used to be the MCAS exam, but now it's other things. I just said this to you. I was ahead of myself. 2 years English, Algebra 1, Geometry, and at least 1 tested high school subject, and we're going to begin to track that. So the interesting debate about this is what comes next, right? And there are some people who are saying the state needs to establish new guidelines for competency determination. And there's discussions about it being a portfolio, a senior project, that demonstrates a mastery of skills. There's all kinds of ideas being floated out there of what's going to be the new standard for competency determination. I'm going to ask this question just because I think it's funny. Is people ask, well, can a school district decide to still use the MCAS exam? And the answer is yes. So the school committee could vote that our 10th grade students have to pass the MCAS exam to graduate. And that would not be a violation of the law, because the law says it's the local school district that determines what your CD is. So the local school district could determine that passing the 10th grade MCAS is how you meet your CD. I know you're not going to do that, and I know they're not going to do that, but they could, because really it's going to be interesting over the next year or two to see what happens with this, to see if the state establishes some new guideline and says this is a competency determination, meaning again, the portfolio, senior project, as an addition to those courses, or if they just leave it totally to local control and local school committees, and maybe you're going to have some districts that require a senior project or require something for you to do, or do you just stay with the coursework? For our current 10th graders, obviously any change that occurred next year or the year after would impact you. So for our current 10th graders, you just have to pass Algebra 1, Geometry, 2 years of English, and biology, physics, or chemistry, and which most of you probably will have already done at the end of this year. So you'll be all set with meeting that requirement. But I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about this, and there already is some discussion out there in terms of what's going to be the new requirements, and is the state going to allow the local districts to make that determination, or is it going to become a Department of Education guideline? So we'll be interested to see where that is. So I think that's it, and I will open it up to any questions from the school committee about the MCAS exam. And because, as my wife says, I like to repeat myself, I will do that. I'll hit the key salient points, which are you don't need to pass the exam to graduate, but everybody needs to take the exam. There is no opt-out. We want students to try and do their best. Students still need to earn a competence determination through passing Algebra 1, Geometry, 2 years of English, and a high school science course.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Questions, concerns, thoughts?
You're thorough.
I think that was very thorough, and I appreciate your soapbox, because I think it will be relatable for the students and the community.
Yeah, and I do, honestly, are we going to see more people say they don't want to take the exam? I'm sure we are.
Yep.
You know, we're going to try to encourage all students to take the exam, but I think we'll see more students looking to opt out.
I'm hoping maybe the lessening of pressure will actually make it easier for students to go in and take it without feeling that like anxiety, because it is just a test. It isn't the end all be all of your high school career.
Agreed. So it'll be interesting to see if the test scores go up as a result of having that added
maybe we'll have
pressure
higher
and
participation,
stress
higher
and
test scores.
pressure
That'd be
and
good.
anxiety and
I mean, like, testing is anxiety producing anyway,
Absolutely.
but when you don't feel like your whole future is on the line, it's hopefully that lessens some of that for students.
I did skip one piece of what comes next, which is an important piece. The school committee does have to change its graduation policy, because the graduation policy from the school committee currently states that students have to pass the MCAS exam. So we're going to have to revise that policy prior to students taking the MCAS exam, because technically our policy would state that that's what they have to do. So I have a draft of a new graduation policy for the school committee, and we'll set up a policy subcommittee meeting, get that approved, and my goal would be to have that new policy on the February agenda. So February 3rd we'll have, and then the committee, maybe that's something we even waive a second meeting on and just move forward on and pass that and remove the MCAS piece from the actual school committee policy.
perfect. Absolutely, excellent. Thank you very much. Very detailed, good information. Good to have clarity. Okay, so let's see. That brings us to the District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, DCAP.
So Dr. Erickson is going to talk to us a little bit about this document called the District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, or DCAP.
Thank you. So hopefully you've all had a chance to bring it up and review it. It is not a new document to us, even though we routinely go through and revise it and make sure that we incorporate current best practice and research in here. But actually, the DCAP, or District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, is a requirement for all districts in the Commonwealth to have. And what it is it's like a list of things that we do for students without having to identify them or codify them as receiving special ed services and that sort of thing. So all of these are available to all students and in the regular ed program. So if you scroll down to page 3 in your document, it talks about the program and different characteristics that support curriculum accommodation, and the kind of the breadth and depth of different activities that we have within our district to support students. And then as you continue to scroll down, you'll see first with the elementary, the list of accommodations, modifications, and interventions that students can get. And students, educators can choose to implement these without having to, again, go through like special ed eligibility. So things, for example, like provide multimodal presentations of materials, or provide multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate mastery. So if a student writes an essay and the teacher knows that they can do a little bit better, they're given the opportunity to rewrite that, which is something we'd all want for our students. If a student is confused, then the teacher can make sure that they summarize key components of the daily lesson, or they can model effective strategies. So there's a whole list in here around these different categories, not only curriculum instruction and assessment, but the behavioral, the personalized learning, the organizational, and then the intervention. This aligns really well with the video that we just watched on the early IEP adoption, particularly the educator that was featured in the video, Deb Smith, talked a lot about how she allows variety and representation, or she gives students opportunities to try different modes. And I would say that that video really allows this DCAP to come to life. If we move along in the document, it then highlights middle high school opportunities. So again, things that all students can receive and all teachers can provide to students. And the idea here is, again, that we do not have a one-size-fits-all approach to learners, just like there is no one type of learner. And it's an opportunity to make sure that we're meeting each learner where they're at and everyone gets what they need to succeed. And if you keep scrolling on, we also highlight in here our commitment to universal design for learning, that there's a variety of engagement and the way that things are represented, and then the action and expression that goes into that. So that's something that is not new to teachers. We've had training in both buildings on that. And it really jumps off of current brain science. And then the last thing, and we added this year, is just a real clear flow chart about what happens if you have a student and they're struggling in one aspect of your class. Here are some things that you can do. Because it's a data-driven model, we ask teachers to engage in collecting some anecdotal data or assessment data to be able to say, is the student making progress? And then to implement different interventions that could be effective, and then to monitor that. If they're working, great, we keep that up. And if not, we change and mid-course correct. So it's really a desire to kind of go through and find the secret recipe for each student to make sure that they're achieving at their optimal level. Anything you want to add?
No, very nice job, Meredith. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you.
I love this document. It's great.
Yeah, that was great. So if there's someone that's listening, or one of the students here, that something might have caught their eye that they might be interested in, who would they reach out to have to start that conversation?
So depending on their class, they can reach out directly to their teacher and request these things, but the teacher can also navigate that as well. If that doesn't work, they can also talk to a school adjustment counselor or to an administrator.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Appreciate that. Thorough as always. Thank you, Dr. Erickson. Okay, so that brings us to the preliminary FY26 budget presentation, which I'm sure is going to have all of our sophomores that are with us riveted and on the edge of their seats.
It's good times.
It is really important, so I do encourage you to pay attention to what Mr. Griffin has to offer.
Buckle up, it's riveting stuff.
I'm an accountant, so I do find this honestly riveting, but it's important, so thank you, Mr. Griffin. Suspense. You should add some music.
We need music. We need videos. Pictures. Animation.
It's a static document, so we're going to have to make a separation. Yeah, I can scroll.
You see that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hi, folks. Thank you for having me. So tonight we'll be giving you your first look at the FY26 preliminary budget. I'll start by saying a couple things about the summary, the sort of organization of our presentation today. Each time we talk about our budget, it's not on your slide here, but I'd just like to remind people that we're going to do a deep dive in a ton of numbers. There's going to be graphs, riveting for the few of us who love that stuff. But ultimately, your budget is a representation of people, right? We are in the people business. We are a bunch of big people trying to help educate a bunch of smaller people. And so as we sort of get into the nitty-gritty of it, we're thinking about all the figures here and all the graphs for it, I ask that you all sort of keep in the back of your mind that these numbers represent your students and they represent your school district, and ultimately they represent the investments that your community, both at the local level and at the state and national level, has in the Carver Public Schools. And so try not to get lost with just the figures and try to think about those figures in your classroom and in your schools and on your school bus and your cafeteria and so on. So we start with our priorities every year that we develop the budget. We think about sort of these three things as our drivers. You've seen the educational blueprint several times. That's really our focal point, though. We think about how do we keep our schools safe? How do we make sure that we're always enhancing and strengthening teaching and learning, the educational program? How do we engage with our community and make sure that it's more than just a school, that this is a community environment? And then how do we leverage sort of the finance and the policy to be super efficient with our resources? We realize that education across the nation in the Commonwealth is an expensive endeavor, and we want to make sure that as we're thinking about all the investments in education, that we do so with an eye toward finding alternative resources, finding partnerships, getting the most bang for our dollar, and still delivering a really high quality experience for your kids, right? The next two bullets, again, are pretty self-explanatory, maintaining level services for students. That simply means continuing to do all the good things that we currently do that you saw this evening earlier. And to continue to develop the Pathways programs that I know you've heard a lot about already. If you want a refresher, there's a really nice sort of website link that's managed by the school department that gives you a sense of all the cool things that are happening in our Pathways. That's a focal point of our budgeting process as well. Your budget is organized in this way, and the reason it is that the state sort of sets out a set of rules for folks like me to organize school money in the Commonwealth, so that all schools around the state sort of organize the money in like these buckets, right? And they ask us to present the money in these same buckets. So we're going to be going on that right-hand side, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and so forth. We'll give you an overview of the finances for FY25 to FY26, and then I'll highlight some of the major cost drivers, the reasons that you see increases, the reasons that you see decreases. The last thing I'll just say is we look at the overview. Typically when we're developing a budget, we start to see a theme that comes out as part of the process. If you remember last year, our theme was really evident. It was special education, out-of-district costs. It was here in Carver. It was across the Commonwealth. That was a huge spike. As I look at this big picture view of your budget, your overview, I think the theme that I see is this return to normalcy, that we have still increases in those costs. We'll drill down in that 9,000 series. I'll give you some more data about that. But you start to see some of those costs, while increasing, slowing down in the rate of increase, which is super helpful. And that leaves your community resources to try to continue to invest in all the other good things that you do for kiddos in your schools. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents editorial for whatever it's worth. So here's your snapshot. This is your executive summary. On the left-hand side, again, you see that, by the series, that's how the state asks us to organize our money. You see the FY25 costs, right? That's your budget there for FY25. And then FY26 is the current proposal. All in, your increase from one year to the next is just shy of 6%. And we'll kind of drive into what that looks like in the next couple slides. Your 1,000 series doesn't have a lot of action on it going into next year. I won't read all of those for you, but I'll simply say that, across the board, one of the things that we try to do when we're thinking about our budget is really try to focus in on our recess allocation toward teaching and learning, toward the academic program, right? And so we try to minimize any major swings or increases in either the support components of the work that we do or the necessary but not direct effective students' work of administering all of this or managing all the data or keeping the legal contracts in place and doing those sorts of things. So you can see an overall increase of under 2%, I think, is very reasonable for sort of the large-scale management of your school district. The 2000 series is really where you spend the majority of your resources and the majority of your time. I'll hit a couple highlights. Again, I won't read them all to you, but I think a couple that are important to keep in the back of your mind is that second bullet is summer school. Year after year, we've been going over on that summer school budget, and that's a function of just, again, expanding special education service needs for kiddos. And so you see increases in your summer school budget going into FY26. We also have a copier lease, so all of our copiers through our school district are leased on a multi-year thing. That had been traditionally shared with the town. as part of the work that we did with our colleagues in Town Hall, that's been split out into the individual departments. So that's a new addition that is not typically in our budget, but is now in our budget, and then all of our teachers and staff use to do materials and those sorts of things. The supplies and materials increases are at both buildings. Again, you remember last year we were in a real tight jam. We asked our building leaders and our teachers to really do more with less when it comes to the stuff that they need. And so as I talked about the theme this year, sort of returning back to that normalcy, this is really a catch-up year when it comes to supply and materials sort of across the board. The only other one I'd share with you is the special education testing. We do still see that on the rise right now. That's not necessarily students who go out of district, but that's testing to make sure we understand a student's needs and that we're best fitting their placement for whatever those needs are. There are also some new additions for FY26 that we're really excited about. Again, when I think about that theme of kind of coming back to normalcy, it means you have opportunities to invest above and beyond in your programming. Two new for the 2000 series. One, which I think Dr. Erickson alluded to at a previous meeting, is an annual curriculum revisions program, right? So an opportunity for our school district to think proactively about changes in programming, about updates in state, national standards for programming, and hopefully annually invest in updated curricula so that we're not playing catch up, but Carver Public Schools sort of sitting at the vanguard and trying to be out ahead when it comes to new curricula for kiddos. So for FY26, we currently have slated ELA and world languages, and the goal would be each year giving a different program an opportunity to sort of get out ahead when it comes to innovating on the curricula side of our work. Did you want to grab that?
Yeah, but if I just hop, and Dr. Erickson, I don't know if you want to hop in on this at all either, but Dr. Erickson made a presentation a couple meetings ago about the concept of a curriculum revision cycle. And I just wanted to highlight that point, the point that was cut from the Carver Public Schools budget in, I believe, 2001. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
23 years ago. It was my first year as an administrator, 24 years ago. It was my first year as an administrator in the district. And it was after 9/11, and it was the first time we faced a budget crunch, at least the times when I was working. The 90s was a little bit of a time of prosperity. And the first year we hit a little bit of a budget crunch in 2001 after 9/11. One of the first things we cut was curriculum revision monies. And I remember very specifically at the time it was $100,000. And we're not proposing $100,000 here, but back 24 years ago, the district had a $100,000 yearly curriculum revision line item where they could set up a process that over 5 or 6 years, we made sure that we updated every curriculum area and had money to back that up. So certainly since 2000, I don't want to send anybody the message that since 2001 we haven't changed any of our curriculum. We've changed a lot of it. But we've been doing it at almost catch as catch can. There hasn't been a system in place to ensure that that's occurring. It's been happening through end of the year revenues. It's been happening through a little bit use of free cash on the town side in support of that. It's been happening through different places. And we feel like this year there's actually an opportunity to build in this monies to support curriculum revision, a curriculum revision cycle over time. So this is actually a little bit above level service, but we think it's an important thing that we have the opportunity to do this year, and I just wanted to weigh in on that. Dr. Erickson, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
I love the idea not only of funding it to be responsible, but also to just be proactive, because I feel like when a system like that is set into place, it raises the bar on transparency, so teachers know, like, this is when, our opportunity to review and really engage in like a deeper dive into what we need to change is going to be, and they can plan accordingly, if that makes sense. So I think it's a win-win for the district and ultimately for the students, because it also ensures that we're continually trying to do the best programming within our means, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, that's great.
The last thing I would just add on curriculum revision, though, is when you think about the other side of this, which is the taxpayer, the more lead time you have to do this work, the more efficient you can be in the resource allocation as well, right? And so I think to Mr. Neef's point, we may not need the amount that you needed in 2001, but if we've got the kind of lead time once the budget's approved, now Dr. Erickson and our principals and our teachers are able to get together, sort of start that lead work well in advance. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Your 3000 series is one that the state has sort of lumped a bunch of support services together. For the most part here, you're looking at your nursing, health services, and transportation sort of all built in that 3000 series. A couple of your driving factors when you think about the increase from FY25 to 26 include some continued expansion of our in-house special education homeless transportation services. It's been something we've worked on for the past couple of years now to try to bring more of those costs in-house versus paying for-profit companies to do some of those transportation. And the other that I think is helpful to think about is the year 3 of the athletics uniform replacement. So we started that a couple years ago. Each year, the athletic director and a team of coaches and students sort of come together. They've identified a set of uniforms that is desperately in need of replacement. And similar to the curriculum revision cycle, having a replacement cycle in place lets you get out ahead, lets you be thoughtful about that process, lets you engage your community and your coaches and your staff and your students and your parents and those groups of people versus, as Mr. Neef had mentioned, this cash as catch can. You can still get them replaced, but the process usually is less engaged, right? Fewer stakeholders. New in 26, so beyond level services, we're excited that our athletics program is considering a girls lacrosse program, which would be amazing, as well as some additional special education out-of-district homeless routes that are in transportation.
Great.
Your 4000 series is predominantly operations and maintenance. That's typically your least expensive in terms of annual cost increase. It hovers around 1% annually, and when times are tough, that's usually the place that we say, can you make do with less? They've been in a jam through this year. You may remember it from some of our previous month's transfers. You'll see it again in this month's transfers. They're already running over budget. Time materials on some of these contracts are they're skyrocketing. It's a direct function of inflation on stuff and inflation on cost of services. So we're still working with them to try to tighten that number, as we think about our final balanced budget. But you can see that's your major driver there is going to be time materials for almost all of your maintenance contracts. One new sort of above level services that we do have in that budget is expanding our painting program. So every summer, Carver Public Schools hires students typically to come in and they touch up, for the most part, it's been the middle high school because that's your oldest building. But the elementary school is starting to get due for some touch-up painting, and so this does include expanding that program so that we keep up with the elementary school. We're not finding ourselves 10 years from now saying, oh my gosh, what would we need to do to kind of update the building and keep it up to, up to stuff. 5,000 is pretty boring. Your driver there predominantly is liability insurance, is projected at 10. That typically fluctuates this month through February to get a firmer number. You do typically get savings. As a reminder, you do have a carryover agreement with your Plymouth Carver regional employees from when we deregionalized from Plymouth. Those employees still get insurance. As they have gotten older, there are fewer of them and that cost is less. The 9,000s are really where the conversation, was a year ago today. And so what I'll do is give you a little follow-up detail, some drill-down information about this, because I feel like while the costs are starting to slow down their increase, they're still pretty high, right? So here's a reminder, it's special education out-of-district costs, vocational enrollments that are not Old Colony, so Aggies and those sorts of things, yeah. Dual enrollment for kiddos at the high school who also might take a college class. And Carver has this partnership with the Reed's Family Success Partnership that provides wraparound services for families in need. All those costs are put together. The large lion's share, though, really is your special education out-of-district costs. So you can see a 7% increase from FY25 to 26. About 215 or so thousand of that is sped out of district costs. That increase has slowed from last year, but it's still quite high. A little sense of context here. The state actually regulates a portion of these tuitions, right? So if a kiddo has severe needs in special education, so severe that a community school can't provide the service, then that student typically is placed at a different, more specialized placement somewhere in the Commonwealth and then transported them every day, right? The state steps in every year and says, hey, we're going to regulate how much you pay for these private placements typically, yeah? You can see there that currently the state has said, hey, next year for FY26, the increase can be no more than 3.7% for all these private placements. So if you have your money now, add 3.7%. Our number right now is more than double that though, so it does include like additional kiddos going out still. Less than last year when your number was very substantial, but still more, right? And so I feel like we're going in the right direction, but I don't think we're there yet from a financial perspective, yeah? So I thought I'd give you some drill down on that. Like that's a substantial portion of your budget. You want to know more about it. So on the right, what you see there is just a graphic of your total special education expenses in your community. That's all in. That pays the teachers and the supplies and the testing and the tuitions. That's the whole sort of kit and caboodle for special education for FY26 all the way back through, I want to say is FY15 is there. A couple things that you can see is that over time, you can see some of these spikes, and we were just in that spike. And you can see at FY26, you're still increasing your overall budget. The cost, again, of out-of-district tuitions are up, as are materials, as are staffing, as are contract services, but that's lowered. And I have one more drill down that might be helpful to think about. So this one looks complicated, but I actually think this tells you the best story over the past 10 years when you think about special education services from a financial perspective here in the Carver schools. Bear with me a moment, we'll kind of break this up into two parts. The first is just take a look at those blue bars. Those blue bars represent the amount of additional cost that it costs you to operate your special education program. Not your total cost, how much more it costs each year. So for example, if you look at FY19 to FY20, they both cost more. FY20 increased a little bit less than FY19, yeah? Which brings you to that little orange line, which shows you the rate of change. So right above 19 to 20, you can see that line starting to go down. It still costs more money from 19 to 20 to do all the things you need to do to help kiddos with disabilities, but the rate of change slowed down. Extrapolate that out to FY25 to 26. You can see that nice sharp decline. So from a financial perspective, that's what you want to see. Does it cost more to help kiddos with disabilities in 26 and 25? It totally does. But the rate of increase is less. Two other things to be thinking about that I know our special education team and our buildings are always thinking about. You actually see dips in 2017 and 2021. Now 21 is obvious, that's the pandemic. That's sort of a weird anomaly. But 17 is a helpful thing to think about and sort of a helpful construct to look through when you think about special education costs. In 2015 to 16, you saw an increase in special education costs here in our district. At that time, Carver Public Schools was building new in-district programming to help our kiddos with severe needs here, in-house, in our community. Can it work for every kiddo? No, but it can work for many. And you realize that decrease in cost in 17. That was the only time over the past 10 years, again, with the exception of COVID, that you saw a decrease in cost. You see that spike go way down, and you actually see that blue bar go into the negative. It cost you less money to service all the kiddos you had in special education at that time. And I share that data, albeit a little bit dense with you, because I think that's the formula from a financial perspective to sort of help continue to support your kiddos that have special needs, but do it in a way that sort of maximizes the return on investment. I know that was a lot, but I hope that was helpful.
That's great.
This is your executive summary. So big picture, this just breaks your total pie out into the chunks again. About 88%, just shy of 90% of your total costs go to direct student services. Operations are around 7%, admins 3%, related benefits and stuff is 2%. Again, your student tuitions remains a little on the high side, right? You want it to be like 8, 9-ish%. It's right now at 11%, so that piece of the pie it takes up is more than typical. But we're kind of going in the right direction there, I think. So next steps. What we typically do here in Carver is right around February 1, we draw this line in the sand for special education out-of-district costs and for health insurance costs. Those are two of your largest expense drivers across the entire community, and they're also two that are really hard to estimate. So we make that line in the sand on February 1. We say, look, Anything after that will go to reserves for, but as of February 1, this is going to be our figure we feel good about. So that's coming up. We're excited about that, sort of line in the sand from an expense side of things. On our end with the team, we'll continue to work to tighten those expenses and find ways to be as efficient as we certainly can. We'll finalize the vocational enrollments and those sorts of things. On the revenue side, we're going to continue to work with our colleagues over at Town Hall, kind of firm up that revenue figure. I know they've got a meeting tomorrow to put out their figures as well. Two other things that are helpful to keep in mind, again, health insurance, which is the shared cost. If that number goes beyond 10, that reduces the amount of money we'd have. If it's less than that, then it increases the amount of money, right? So we get those figures from our Gateway partnership, which is all these couple of towns that work with Carver to buy insurance together. February 1 roughly is when we get that. And I'm sure you've seen the governor's budget's planning to be out on the 22nd. I know the governor's budget has been late for like a decade, so I'm hopeful for the 22nd, but cautiously optimistic for Beacon Hill. And again, that's a big number for us. Chapter 70 is a big driver when it comes to revenue. So those are the things that are still in the mix, but I feel optimistic about where you stand and the direction you're going with your budget right now.
Excellent.
Those are just your upcoming dates, and if you have any questions, I'll answer any questions I can.
Does anyone have any questions? I just want to say thank you, Ron, again, for the insight, for the level of depth and the variety of ways that you present to us and to the community. I think it's really important for people to understand how much thought goes into this, and I think breaking it down into those buckets and explaining what they are to the community I think will be helpful. I'm sure all of you students are absolutely riveted by the presentation you just saw about the budget, but it is something you'll have to think about it at some point in your life, whether it's you're budgeting for your own home, your own car, all those types of things. It's just we're in the business of educating students. So thank you very much. Look forward to continuing updates. Fingers crossed the governor's budget will be on time. And that given December's revenue, hoping it will be a little bit more positive.
Let's hope so.
Right?
And we're on track for town meeting as far as we know so far?
Yeah, as far as we know, we haven't heard anything that they're looking to do anything different than April.
All right, perfect.
Great. Thank you very much. So that brings us to upcoming events.
Yep, so this is just, as we usually review each month, here's the events coming up over January and February. So at the 9 through 12 level, we are heading towards midterm exams. So that's coming up to the end of the second term, and midterms, which will be early release days for students in grades 9 through 12. We do want to note that January 24th, this is actually a calendar change. So January 24th will be a early release day for all students in grades 6 through 12. Okay. It's not an early release day at the elementary school, but it is one for students in 6 through 12. 9 through 12 will be taking their midterm exams. 6 through 8 will be doing a writing benchmark. It's something we've been doing over the last couple of years that we brought back. So that will be a half day of school for all students in grades 6 through 12, which is a change in our calendar.
Okay.
And then as we get into February, as always, there are always a tremendous number of opportunities for students and for parents and for the community to get involved in the schools. That's why I always take a couple minutes at the school committee meeting just to kind of show this list and get excited about some of the upcoming things that are coming. And the last one that just caught my eye was the February 24th, kindergarten registration begins. And the other thing which actually isn't on here, but I'll mention to the community and we'll make a presentation on it on February 3rd, is district review. So remember earlier in the year, we said that DESI will be coming out to do a district review. That Monday, February 24th through Thursday, February 27th. There's going to actually be a parent evening on February 26th at 6 o'clock. So I'll be putting out a letter to the entire community, inviting them to join that parent meeting. Probably do that closer to the beginning of February, just so I feel like you don't want to put it out too early in terms of having people remind. So there'll be some reminders coming out about that. So we're excited about the district review, and in February we'll do a presentation to the school committee and to the community, kind of reviewing what's going to happen during those days.
Excellent.
Senior breakfast.
Including, I will say, including, they will meet with the school committee on the 24th prior to our meeting.
Okay.
So our meeting is at 6:20, I think the 23rd, sorry. I think it's the 24th, actually.
24th, yeah.
The 23rd is a Sunday, I believe. So I think it's our meeting is Monday the 24th. And they'll meet with the representatives from DESI from the district review will meet with the school committee at 5 o'clock on the 24th, prior to the meeting on the 24th. So a lot of great things coming up. Looking forward to them.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to recommendations from the superintendent, the financial update, and budget transfers.
Yep, so we're going to turn back to Ron for just the financial update and budget transfers for this month.
Almost there, guys.
Right?
We're almost there.
It's been a long day.
Want the financial memo?
Yeah, so just two quick financial updates for you, one from Washington, one from Beacon Hill. You may remember just about a week or so ago, President Biden signed the Social Security Fairness Act. Essentially pairs back a couple of older provisions. Why that's important to the education sector is that for educators who might be career changers, they previously didn't have access to their Social Security quarters, to earnings they had for Social Security. The Social Security Fairness Act allows them to have access to that. Sector-wide, the implications there may be that you could see a potential increase over the next couple of years of retirees, particularly career changers, right? Teachers who had 10 years or 5 years or something in a previous career, now will be able to realize those, those increases to their retirement. And then on Beacon Hill, again, we talked about it just a few minutes ago. Consensus revenue is not there, but it should be there this week, off to Ways and Means thereafter. One last thing I think that Ms. Clordy alluded to, first few months of state collections were not tracking really well. They've rebounded sort of up through December, which is good. I won't go into too much detail, but if you're bored, you can dig into it. However, there's a caveat there. It is a reflection of some one-time collections, so you can't really count that when you build a budget for 26. So takeaway from Beacon Hill is better news than what we thought, but still not, celebrate when it comes to FY26 money. More to come on that. You've got your quarter 3 warrant there, down to the penny as always. I asked the committee to vote it, and we'll talk about transfers quickly.
Do you want to do a vote on the warrants while they're up here?
Yeah.
That's what, make a motion to approve the warrants?
Sure. I move to approve the warrants as presented tonight.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Now I'll quickly just share some highlights on the transfers. As always, you've got your budget down to the penny, and then that other tab gives you the transfers. There's just 3 that I'll highlight for you, and then if you have any questions, just let me know. The first is that column that says home instructional salaries. We have unanticipated OG, it's Orton Gillingham services that are required. If you click the next tab, Mr. Neef, that'll give you a summary for it. So that'll be a transfer to cover those OG services. There's been a change in placement for one of our students for out-of-district costs. That reflects the out-of-district costs there in that second row. And then, as I mentioned, our O&M supplies and materials, as well as some of the time and materials costs for contracts have been up. So what you see there is a projection to cover the overage and to cover the anticipated costs through the end of the year. We may need to do a reconciliation in the spring, but that should get you pretty close. I'll answer any questions that you have, and with the committee's vote, we'll be able to push through those journal entries.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
I move to approve the FY25 budget transfers as presented this evening.
I second. Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you as always, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
And then that brings us to something potentially fun. Field trips.
Wait,
What
budget's
about?
not fun?
I think the budget is fun.
No, budgets are
Personally,
not
but-
fun.
I had a blast, Ron. I don't know what they're talking about.
Budgets are parties all the time.
Yep. I mean, it's one of the fun things that we get to do, right, is to hear about what field trips our students are going to go on. There could be some students here who are going to participate.
Okay.
Yes, we just need we have a field trip for the culinary team to Gillette Stadium, and the student council field trip to Hyannis in March. The Gillette Stadium is in February. I just need a motion, a vote to approve those field trips.
Okay, I move to approve the field trips as presented tonight.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a great time. Okay, so that brings us to reports from the school committee. Does anyone have anything they would like to report?
Not to report, but I just have something I'd like to say.
Absolutely.
So, I am a graduate of Carver High School from 1989. It's been a very, very long time. And I just want to provide my condolences to Rocky Gomes' family and friends and all the students who knew and loved him, which you probably saw me get a little emotional. Rocky was the first athletic director of Carver High School. And he loved all the students, not just the kids who played sports. He knew everybody by name. He engaged with everybody equally. And he made a distinct mark on my life in a positive way. And so I just want to say that his legacy will live on in the students that he had. And again, I'm truly sorry for the loss of Mr. Gomes.
And I would just like to second what Kelly said.
Absolutely.
And the only piece I'll add on to that is that Mr. Gomes was a mentor of mine when I started here in 1993 as a teacher and as a coach. I coached basketball, I coached tennis. I spent a lot of time with Mr. Gomes in his time he was here. My first year as principal at the middle high school was the year that Mr. Gomes retired. So I got to work with him as a teacher, coach, assistant principal, and principal, and was truly a mentor of mine in the Carver Public Schools.
Thank you. Okay, so I know, thank you very much for sharing that. It's a tremendous loss. I just really briefly just want to give a couple of updates. I promise I will be brief. This past weekend, I went to the presidential retreat for the incoming president of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, or MASC, which was great. It was also my first meeting as the secretary-treasurer for MASC. So it was my first opportunity to get into their weeds, so to speak, Ron, and go through their financials a little bit deeper and ask some questions, and also start to work on a strategic plan. So we have a leadership conference coming up in February where we will be doing just that. And I also wanted to share with the committee that Day on the Hill will be Monday, May 6th this year. So I have the date a little earlier than usual, so we can hopefully see if there are any students that would be interested in visiting the State House with us, to visit our representatives, to share your stories with them, and advocate for their support of public education in our district. And next, on January 30th, I will be traveling to Washington, D.C. with the National School Board Association. I am the representative on the nominating committee for the Northeastern Regional Nominating Committee for NSBA. So I will be interviewing candidates who will be joining the executive board for NSBA for next year.
Cool.
So just wanted to share that with all of you. There'll be advocacy and equity, there'll be professional development. We will be visiting Capitol Hill. Not sure what those visits are going to look like now, but we are going to thank our constituents, our legislators, for their support, and bring stories from our districts so that they can hear your stories and hear your successes and know that what they're advocating for and what they're fighting for and the money that they're allocating towards public education is really going towards, lifting you and helping you be productive members of society and contribute to your community. So lots going on, lots of good things, just a busy time, I'm sure, just like for everybody else. So with that, this full calendar per usual. So I encourage people to come out, fill those seats at our games, at meetings. Let's see, there's a PTO meeting, there's school council meeting, Carver Cares. There's a lot going on, so I hope people will come out and support the district. Was that brief? I don't know. I said I was going to be brief. For me, it was brief, for those who don't know me. So, so with that, if no one has anything to add, if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Sure. I move that we adjourn the open session of the January 13th, 2025 school committee meeting to move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the EAPC and non-union personnel. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, not to return to open session.
I second.
Excellent. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Jackie Lake, aye.
Kelly Nimi, aye.
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Katie Sullivan, aye.
Excellent. It is 7:28 p.m. and the public portion of the January 13th, 2025 meeting of the Carver School Committee is adjourned.
Thanks for coming, guys.